Greetings, champions of circumstance. Chapter 1, Unlikely Allies. Hey, get back here, you little scoundrels! Quintus yelled angrily, as he realized that the kids who had bumped into him a handful of seconds ago had stolen his pouch containing the sorry remains of last night's ill-gained earnings. Quintus, a very handsome young man, and the result of a young human servant girl and an elf noble, looking too deep in each other's eyes, started running, hoping to catch the young thieves. He was of average height, slightly muscular, and his skin was always tanned, something he had inherited from his mother, who originated from a small town not far from the Talantar Desert. His eyes were soft brown, as was his thick neck-long hair, and he had a tiny scar on the left side of his chin, something which many a lady friend of his said made him look a little dangerous. Being quite able at his trade, Quintus wore a well-kept, sleeveless leather vest over a light grey linen shirt, which matched his pants. The shirt ended shortly after his shoulders, not even reaching his elbows, and his feet and shins were covered by a pair of sturdy leather boots. Even though Quintus should greatly outmatch the kids in speed, stamina, and agility, he had a hard time catching up to them, this being because of his enormous hangover. A hangover he had acquired after a very long night of heavy drinking and friendly company. A night which had, of course, not been paid for with his own money. Thief by trade, since an early age, Quintus had last night climbed in through the bedroom window of some minor noble, who had long been known to exploit the desperate, poor, and homeless in Kiva, to have them produce his wares in detestable working environments. After having quickly and quietly emptied the nobleman's house of most jewelry, Quintus had left, found his usual jewelry buyer, gotten paid, and then hit his favorite tavern. From there on, it all got a little blurry. As he neared the eastern city gate, Quintus, head now pounding and eyes turning slightly blurry from the indescribable headache, considered letting the thieving kids just get away. Well, it's just a few silver, and I get to keep a low profile until the festival next week, Quintus mumbled to himself, as he ducked his head down a barrel of rainwater, the cold water freshening him up a bit and clearing his mind. Clearing it just enough to remember why he could absolutely not let those kids get away. Crap! If anyone hears that I, Quintus, was robbed by a band of snot-nosed brats pulling a simple bumping stunt, had completely forgotten the thoughts of the months-long ridicule and humiliation he would face if anyone in Kiva's criminal underworld heard about this. Quintus quickly located the kids and sprinted after them. Luckily for him, the kids' escape had momentarily been blocked by a farmer entering the city with his herd of sheep, allowing him to quickly gain on them. At the eastern city gate, Bjorn Dons passed a pair of guards, who were currently very busy trying to get an explanation out of a snail man, who, by the sound of it, had been discovering carrying vials both containing poison and acid. I assure you I have no knowledge of how those vials got there, the snail man frantically tried to explain. Someone must have put them in my backpack without me noticing. Like we're gonna believe crap like that, the guard in charge shouted. The whole scene was starting to draw quite a lot of attention, notably because of the exotic-looking snail man who had also started shouting, clearly feeling like the victim. Dons moved past the scenery with little to no interest, casting a large shadow over the now very noisy gathering of guards who had decided to arrest the snail man, who in turn was voicing loud and very insistent protests. "Excuse me, sir," one of the guards shouted after him. "Can you wait for a moment? We would like to have a quick chat with you." Dons ignored the guard and continued forward. "Quick chat," he sneered to himself. "I don't have time for weaklings like them." Before he got much further, Dons heard hasty footsteps behind him. "Sir, you have to wait. You can't just enter the city without permission," the guard said in a harsh voice. Dons turned around to face the guard and his two colleagues. And who said that I need permission from tiny twits like you? Duns replied with a deep, rumbling voice, hinting both the threat and a challenge. Duns was a sight to behold. Standing almost 3 meters tall, covered in white fur, dusty from travel, weighing more than a ton, donning the dark blue armor of the Yersong, and with a battle axe longer than the guard strapped to his back. The guards cowered when they met his gaze, unwillingly taking a step back. Clearly intimidated by the towering Yersong's annoyed glare, the guard to the right sank and replied nervously. By order of Guard Lieutenant Christoph, we are to question anyone entering the city without a clear purpose, especially anyone who looks like an adventurer. Having regained a bit of his confidence, the guard continued, and since you are carrying nothing but a giant axe and a backpack, you are looking very much like the latter. And what if I refuse to talk with you, little man? Duns replied both provocatively and indifferently. Then we'll have to arrest you, just like we did with the snail man, the guard replied, failing to sound confident while also pointing towards the snail man who was now being dragged away in handcuffs. You will arrest me, Duns said in a dangerous voice. You and what army? Clearly not happy with the direction this conversation was heading, the guard on the left joined in. Please, sir, we mean no ill will. We just want to ask what you intend to do in the city and to take a quick look at what you will be bringing into the city. That's all. After that, you're free to leave. I don't have time for your games. Duns cut the guard off. If you want to ask questions, draw your weapons and earn the right. The guards were stunned by the blood-chilling seriousness in his voice. I thought so, Duns sneered. You're as cowardly as you are weak. He turned around and continued into the city. We need some help over here, one of the guards behind Duns shouted. This one wants to fight, he continued. A few moments later, the largest of the guards he has just talked to were not past Duns, spear now in hand. Sir, you are under arrest for threats made against the guard and for obstruction of guard work. Duns looked around. He was surrounded by 8 guards, all wielding spears. Just follow us back to the station and no one is going to get hurt, the squad leader proclaimed in a clear voice. Quite a few people had stopped whatever task they had previously been carrying out to watch the incident unfold before them. A member of the proud Yersong race had been surrounded by 8 guards and was refusing to follow orders. That's more like it, Duns growled with dangerous anticipation. Let's see if you cowards do more than bark. Just as he was about to reach for his axe, Duns and everyone else had their attention forced somewhere else, when some of the spectators were suddenly and violently pushed aside by a group of 5 frightening-looking kids, closely followed by a half-elf thief. Thieves! Quinto shouted as he went through the crowd. They stole my pouch! Someone stop them! Hearing the word thief like that made Duns remember Tomba. The little abomination had destroyed the Nargula and stolen irreplaceable parts, making it effectively impossible to produce any more how. The substance, which was a crucial part of every Yersong's life, it had been his responsibility as king to protect the Nargula and to oversee the production of how. And when he had failed that responsibility, Duns had been cast out by his people, exiled. Remembering Tomba and the humiliation he had caused him not that long ago, awoke excruciating and horrible memories, which he had buried deep within the darkest corners of his mind. The sudden flare-up of memories caused Duns' blood to boil violently, and with every utterance of the word thief from the half-elf's throat, it boiled hotter and hotter, until his anger erupted. The still all too fresh pain and rage hurled Duns into a mind-numbing, berserker-like frenzy. The turmoil made by the kids and the half-elf had caused the guards to lose their focus for a brief moment, and when they redirected their attention towards Duns again, it was too late. Duns flung himself forward, tossing 3 guards out of the way as he landed on all fours, and charged after the half-elf and the cats. letting loose a terrifying roar that scattered the crowd as everyone panicked. To the north of the capital center, Ikoi strolled around after having just delivered the blueprints for Kiva's Mage College new focus crystal, a device that allowed extraction of argwine directly from the winds of Arcana. Argwine was used in the creation of most arcane items and trading goods, as well as being sold to rich nobles as a form of exotic liquor. The production of argwine was one of the main pillars in any major mage college economy, and when Kiva's college had showed signs of old age, they had reached out to the Balthasar Mage College, who specialized in arcane crystals and their incorporation into magical devices. Just thinking about the incredible complex nature of focus crystals made Ikoi drowsy. The whole process of understanding and creating focus crystals was tedious and very academic, and Ikoi had never been much for study. He had been abandoned at the doorsteps of the Balthasar Mage College when he had been an infant, and, as practice at the college, he had been taken in and raised. All orphans would help with day-to-day tasks as soon as they were old enough, and, if they so desired, they would receive magical education at the age of 12. Possibly younger if they showed any natural talent, something which Ikoi hadn't. Ikoi had been very excited to begin his education as a wizard, but never really showed any talent. The path of wizards was one of constant study, repetition, and pinpoint precision, and Ikoi was a boy of action. Though he lacked talent and real dedication, he had continued to study as a wizard for 8 years. But then, on his 20th birthday, his sorcerer's powers awoke. Even though his powers had awoken late, Ikoi quickly showed great promise as a sorcerer. The way sorcerers shaped their spells with raw will and emotion, instead of careful study and long-time practice as wizards did, was much more his style. Now, a little more than 5 years after his powers awoke, Ikoi had once again grown a little bored with college life, and had happily volunteered when the headmaster of his college had asked who would travel to the capital to deliver the focus crystal blueprints to Kiva. A trip which couldn't be eased by teleportation magic, as the magic weaved into the blueprints would disrupt the teleportation, likely sending the blueprints as well as the poor soul carrying them to the bottom of the ocean. It had been a 4-month travel on horseback, and Ikoi, who had never been outside the city where the Mage College was located, had been overjoyed by the chance of experiencing the world firsthand, and had thoroughly enjoyed his trip. Enjoyed it as much as he could after he stopped being sore from spending half a day on horseback, that was. Now, he had delivered the blueprints and wanted to spend a few weeks exploring the capital and the land around it, before buying teleportation back to the college. Ikoi, being a very normally-looking young man, didn't sprout much of a body, and was neither what would be described as conventionally attractive nor unattractive. Just a bit ordinary. The only exception being his clear blue eyes and pitch black hair with a matching short, well-kept chin beard. What a lovely summer day, Ikoi thought to himself as he strolled around in one of the city's larger market squares, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face while looking for something interesting to buy. Perhaps I should get myself some new clothes. I stand out an awful lot, he thought, almost feeling a bit flustered as he noticed how many people looked puzzled at his bright red college robes. Maybe I should go to the port. I always wanted to see the ocean, he wondered, absent-mindedly, as he was counting up silvers to pay for his new clothes. Suddenly, and without warning, Ikoi was pulled away from his ocean fantasies and back into the real world, when a teenage girl in tattered clothes snatched his purse right out of his hand and violently shoved him into the clothing store he was about to buy them from. Ikoi stumbled and fell headfirst into the display, tearing down multiple shirts and toppling crates as he struggled to get up, while he heard the shop owner shouting angry curses after the teenager. When Ikoi got up, He saw the young girl being chased by two guards, who disappeared down a street leading away from the marketplace. "After her, you idiot!" the store owner shouted at Ikoi. "Make sure they get her so someone can pay for this mess." "Yes, of course," Ikoi replied, still a little confused, as he said after the girl. "A healthy soul in a healthy body," his teachers had said. "Well," Ikoi thought, panting. His physical exhaustion from just a minute of sprinting had left his lungs burning and sides hurting. "I got the soul part. Might have wanted to take the body part more seriously," he continued, and cursed himself for not having participated more in physical education. As he slowed down to regain his breath, Ikoi could see the girl nearing the end of the street, and it seemed like she was outrunning the guards, who were slowed down carrying both their swords, shields, and light armor. In a desperate attempt to try and scare the girl, Ikoi summoned a bolt of force in his right hand, which he launched towards her. But due to his exhaustion from running a few hundred meters, his aim was way off. He hit a window on the first floor, blowing the shutters off the hinges. The girl looked surprised by the sound, but did not trip as he had hoped. "Blast it!" Ikoi mumbled, frustrated under his staggered breath. That was the money I was going to live off for the next month, he thought bitterly. Suddenly, two more guards appeared just around the street corner, right in front of the girl. Clearly taken by surprise, she tried to change directions to avoid colliding with the new guards, but it was too late, and she curled up in anticipation of the impact. She went right through the guard on the right as if he was made of air. Still at full speed, but now heavily off-balanced, she smashed into the ground, screaming in pain from the impact. Now that she lay screaming on the ground, the two guards who had been chasing her quickly caught up to her, as did Ikoi some moments later. "Those illusions?" one of the guards asked Ikoi. "Was that you?" No, Ikoi did not get so much further with his response before being interrupted by a tall elf with blonde hair and clad in soft light grey mage robes, who strolled out of a nearby bookstore. "I created the illusions," the tall elf answered in a soft voice. "Name's Lawson Sindale, by the way." "You dislocated my knee, you asshole!" the girl shouted, through tears of pain. "Could you not just keep your long nose to yourself?" she continued. "Miss, you better stop insulting people so I can concentrate on fixing your leg," the youngest of the guards barked at her. He was rewarded with a long line of curses and insults, the intensity of which made Ikoi blush slightly. "I believe this is yours," the other guard, who was sporting a wet beard, approached Ikoi with his purse in hand. "Thank you," Ikoi replied, "and thanks for the assistance. Lawson, was it? Oh, and my name is Ikoi." "Yeah, thanks for the help," the guard with the purse nodded. "Don't think we could have caught her on our own. She's a fast one." Lawson shook both the outstretched hands. "It was no bother," he said, smiling. With Lawson being this close, Ikoi could now see that both his eyes were pitch black. There was not a hint of color to be seen in them, and not even a white ring at the edge. "Well, we better get little Miss Pickpocket back to the station," the wet-bearded guard said to his younger partner, who had finished examining the girl's leg. "I don't think I can relocate her knee without a healer's help," said the guard who had examined her. "So we are gonna have to carry her." Suddenly, while the two guards were discussing how best to get the girl to the station, and while Ikoi was paying an angry mother for the shutters he had blown off her home, a thundering roar could be heard from an alley further up the street. 5 boys came sprinting out of an alley, panic painted on their faces as they ran down towards a poor part of Kiba. A rumbling sound could be heard from down the alley. It sounded like a massive boulder was plowing through the alley, crushing everything in its way. Both guards, Ikoi, Lawson, and the girl, who for a moment had stopped cursing at everyone around her, looked towards the alley with a frightful expression. A giant polar bear man, clad in armor and with a huge axe across his back, emerged from the alley, running full speed while down on all fours like a wild animal. The bear man stopped for a second as he exited the alley, stood up and scanned the area around him. eyes burning with blind hate. As he locked eyes on the cats, he once again dropped down on all four, let loose another terrifying roar, and charged after them once more. "We should probably do something about that," the guard who had examined the girl said to his partner, who was staring after the polar bear man with disbelief painted all over his face. "We don't get paid nearly enough to deal with a rampaging Yersong," the red-bearded guard started. "Well, I am no fan of the idea either, but if Christoph here we ignore this, he's going to skin us alive." "I will tell him everything, you troll shits!" the girl started yelling again. "Guess we have no choice then," the red-bearded guard said with a sigh. "Chain the girl to the cart," the red-bearded guy continued. "Ma'am, will you look after her until we or some other guards come and take care of her?" he continued to the woman whose shutters Ikoi had blown off. She nodded while counting the money Ikoi had given her. "Do you need any help?" Quintus asked the guards. "We are not allowed to ask civilians for help in any form besides information," the red-bearded guard replied. "But if you just so happen to walk by and interfere out of your own free will, then we would not be the ones to complain," the younger guard said with a grin. "I've never met a Yersong before. Might be interesting," Lawson added, sounding more interested and curious than Nikoi thought the situation allowed. "Guess that's settled then," the red-bearded sighed. "Just promise you won't get hurt. It's my ass if you do. Promise," Ikoi replied excitedly, nervous at the possibility of seeing some action. Lawson just nodded. His almost academic attention was fixed on the rapidly disappearing Yersong ahead of him. Dons had chased the cats for a good 10 minutes. They had managed to stay ahead of him by keeping to small alleys and streets, where he had trouble picking up speed due to all the quick turns and the lack of space, as well as the obstacles in form of Kiva's citizens, barrels, carts, and other objects left standing around. Even though he could just crush or toss most of those obstacles aside, they still slowed him down a little. When he had finally reached the street where he had the space he needed, he was met with the staring gaze of two guards, a puny elf, a weak-looking human in red robes, and a girl, together with a bombastic-looking human female. Somehow, this made him even more furious. But he quickly forgot about them when his eyes once again caught the cats. The fear had given their small feet wings, it looked like. One of them had also soiled himself at the sound of Don's roar earlier, a smell that had almost disconcerted him for a moment. When Don's finally caught up to the cats, they had turned down an empty street with no exit, but he could not see them. "They are here somewhere. I can smell the one who shit himself," Don's thought, his other senses dulled by misplaced rage. "Where are you hiding, thieves?" Don's roared, as he slowly moved down the street, trying to pinpoint the location of the kids by smell. Suddenly, he saw movement through the window of one of the empty buildings. "There you are," he snared, gripping his axe. "Now I will show you how we handle thieves back north," he yelled. Blinded by rage and mind numbed by terrible memories, he continued. "You cost me my throne, Tumba. I was exiled because of you." Lost in hate and anger, Dons continued, not even aware whom he was hunting anymore. "I lost everything, my honor, my people. You robbed us of the sweet song of how. But once I take your head, I will have it all back." Had Dons not been so lost in the mist of rage and loss, he would have seen that there was movement to be seen in more than just one window. Ikoi, Lawson, and the two guards, who had presented themselves as Brom and Oliver, Brom being the older red-bearded one, had followed the bear man up to the empty street and could now hear him ramble on about someone named Tumba. "Okay," Brom started. "When we turn the corner, stay back and let us try and talk him down. Do not interfere unless it gets violent. But if it does, please interfere a lot," Oliver said with a nervous smile. Both Ikoi and Lawson nodded. Ikoi, whose initial rush of adrenaline had worn off, started to question whatever he was about to bite off more than he could chew. Dons had almost reached the door to the house where he had seen movement. Just before he could bash the door in, the mist of rage he had been lost in was pierced by a sharp bark from some human behind him. "Mr. Yersong, I must ask you to put that weapon away." A red-bearded human male, more ordered than asked, with a loud authoritarian voice, hinting a bit of anxiety. "This is none of your business," Dons furiously bellowed back, as he kicked the door open, only to be met with a sharp blade slashing at him. Dons managed to pull away fast enough that the blade only left a small, insignificant wound on his forearm, but was left confused for a moment. The kids would never dare attack him. Ikoi and Lawson, who had followed the guards halfway down the street, now saw, as well as heard, the doors all around them slam open, and from within the buildings, believed to be abandoned, thugs armed with clubs, knives, and chains emerged. The thugs quickly surrounded Ikoi, Lawson, Brom, and Oliver, as well as the bearman, and the sadistic and greedy look on their faces sent chills down Ikoi's spine, while Lawson's face contracted in a grimace of annoyance and frustration. Dons had been whipped out of his blind rage by the sharp pain coming from the shallow wound on his forearm, and he now slowly backed towards the middle of the street, while quickly surveying the situation. As the large gang of thugs encircled Dons, he ended up almost standing back to back with the guards and their two companions, who he had vaguely registered earlier. "When little Jack told me that a bear man was following him, I thought he had eaten something rotten and was hallucinating again," a soft but sharp female voice said from inside the house, where Dons had broken down the door. "To think that we would actually be lucky enough to have a Yersong suffering from how withdrawals walk right into our trap must be a sign that Lady Luck is finally on our side," the woman continued as she walked out of the ruined door. The woman was quite young, as Ikoi could see, as far as Ikoi could see through the wall of thugs. Early 20s, he guessed. And she was also wearing much better clothes than the rest of her gang. Ikoi was quite sure he could see some kind of light leather armor on her, and her daggers didn't look cheap either. The gang leader, which Ikoi guessed her to be, as he got a short, clear view of her, would probably have been viewed as quite the beauty, with her somewhat tall and slender yet strong figure, firewood hair, and well-placed freckles, if not for the nasty burn mark on her left chin and neck, as well as her nose, which had obviously been broken quite violently and never seen a heal. "As a member of the city guard, I command you all to stand down and surrender," Oliver suddenly erupted out of sheer nerves, only getting a mocking laughter in return. "Here's how it works, kiddo," the woman spoke condescendingly. "You strip down to your underwear, leaving everything here, and we might just let you live." "And if I refuse?" Oliver replied defiantly. "Then we kill you and take everything anyway," the gang leader replied indifferently. "Both works for me, so it's your choice, really," she added, mockingly. Before Oliver could come with a reply, Brom put an elbow in his side. "Silence, boy, you're making it worse." Oliver let out a dissatisfied sound, but stayed nervously silent. "And what about the Yersong and the two civilians?" Brom asked, pointing towards Ikoi and Lawson, who stood cramped in between the guards and Dons. "Does the same rule apply to them?" "Not quite. They are to hand over everything they got and leave with us. The two civilians, as you call them, are clearly mages of some sort, and, together with the bear, they will be worth a hefty sum of gold if sold as slaves," the woman answered with a greedy smile. The thugs soon shared that expression. "I'd rather die than become slave to some weakling," Dons snared at the woman. "I would prefer you to just become unconscious," the woman answered mockingly. "Dead slaves are hard to sell." "I don't really want to become a slave either," Ikoi added anxiously, legs shaking. This was way more excitement than he had wished for. I, quite frankly, don't have the time to be a slave, Lawson followed up, his voice more hinting slight impatience than fear. We are not letting civilians be taken as slaves right in front of our eyes, Brom added sternly, Oliver nervously nodding in agreement. Slightly annoyed, the woman responded. You really think you can win this? There are 14 of us, and all you got are 2 guards, a creepy-looking elf, an idiot in red robes whose legs are shaking so violently that I'm surprised they haven't given in yet, and a Yersong who clearly haven't seen battle for a long, long time. If the 2 mages had the power to blast their way out of here, they would have done so already. She stopped to breathe for a second. You really think it's a good idea resisting, she added, now sounding somewhat annoyed, almost as she felt her time being wasted. You weaklings wouldn't be able to defeat as much as a single Yersong cop, and much less me, Dons replied in a threatening and dominating voice. Having regained his composure after his memory-induced rampage and being pulled out of the same, Dons had quickly taken measure of the foes he faced. They threatened him even less than the 8 guards had earlier. Well, have it your way, the guard leader scornfully hissed. Boys, she shouted, kill the guards and beat the 3 idiots to the brink of death. With a bloodthirsty roar, the thugs leapt forward, their eyes burning with lust for violence. Brom and Oliver drew their swords and shield. Lawson's hands and eyes started growing bright purple. Orbs of fire sprung to life in Ikoi's palms, and Dons, gripping his axe even tighter, let out a thundering battle roar as he launched forward to meet his foes head-on. Thank you for today. Have a pleasant evening.